Next, on Currents News, Catholic schools in the Diocese of Brooklyn are revealing plans for the fall. Will they see kids in September? Plus, new high-tech ways for students to stay safe.
COVID technology that's keeping kids safe as schools reopen. I'm Jessica Easthope with how the COVID kiosk is setting itself apart.
The Big Apple's public schools are facing mounting pressure to keep the classrooms closed. A champion of Catholic education in the Brooklyn Diocese has passed away. His great legacy is being remembered.
One of the most outstanding educators our diocese has ever had.
Plus, tonight it becomes official for Joe Biden and Kamala Harris. The delegate roll call is happening virtually. The news starts right now. Good evening, I'm Christine Persichetti. Good news tonight. Plans have been submitted to the state, and most Catholic schools in the Diocese of Brooklyn are planning to reopen with full-time classroom instruction come September. If COVID cases arise, the schools will then adopt plans B and C, a mix between online and in-person instruction and solely distance learning. Parents can check out what schools are doing by going to the individual academy websites. Keeping students, teachers, and staff safe from the coronavirus is the top priority no matter how schools reopen. New COVID detection technology is now available to help do that. Currents News' Jessica Easthope has the story from Bay Ridge.
Once the bell rings on September 9th, most of the Catholic schools in the Brooklyn Diocese will once again be flooded with students. Everyone's face has to be covered and temperatures must be taken. And now there's new technology designed to make sure those guidelines are followed and kids get into school quickly and safely.
They need a device to be put in front just because a parent is sending their child to a school. This just happens to be a standalone device with robust software with management tools behind it that could grow within your network. Because I have no mask on, it says no entry, no mask.
Frank Marinello is the CEO of Hunter Telecom, the technology company that sells this.
Normal temperature.
The COVID kiosk.
Within 1 second, it'll tell you whether you answered your COVID questions, if that's part of the entrance policy. It'll give you a temperature and then also your mask detection.
Some schools are using handheld thermometers and even thermal cameras, but the COVID kiosk, which sells for less than $3,000, sets itself apart.
This is more focused, individual, one kid at a time, self-containing, and non-intrusive.
The COVID kiosk will let you know a person's temperature and if they're wearing a mask or not. It can even stop them from coming into a building without one.
Please wear a mask.
You could open and close doors with it. You could open and close a turnstile with it. It actually works as a security device.
According to the Brooklyn Diocese reopening plan, everyone in school is required to wear a face covering, and schools must conduct daily health screenings and temperature checks. Several schools in the Brooklyn Diocese are already looking to use the COVID kiosk for the start of the school year.
The budgets are completely different than what the DOE budget is, so we're really trying to sit down and make sure it's price affordable. We're trying to make sure the safety of the employees and the children are far exceeding what the price of the machine is.
Hunter Telecom says the device was created out of a need, but will outlive the pandemic.
Even in schools, you can have it where it checks your attendance. We wanted to continue to develop the software so they get full use out of it.
Hunter Telecom is trying to get the COVID kiosk into as many schools as possible before the first day back. In Bay Ridge, Jessica Easthope, Currents News.
New York City's public schools are facing mounting pressure to keep kids out of classrooms come September. Teachers, principals, and even some members of his own administration are telling Mayor Bill de Blasio to hold off on face-to-face instruction for several weeks. At the same time, the number of families opting out of classroom learning jumped by 40,000 last week. That brings the total of kids studying online to about a third of the city's student population. Brother Ralph D'Armento, an important leader who devoted much of his life to improving Catholic education in the Diocese of Brooklyn, has passed away. Currents News' Emily Druby has the story of his great legacy.
A final goodbye to Brother Ralph D'Armento, an indispensable educator in the Brooklyn Diocese. He passed away on Friday at the age of 68.
It's a big loss for the Diocese of Brooklyn.
As the deputy superintendent of schools, Brother Ralph worked closely with Bishop James Massa when he was the vicar for Catholic education in the Diocese of Brooklyn.
He was of tremendous help in assisting our academies to balance their books and to try to maintain a steady enrollment or to increase the number of students in the school.
Brother Ralph spent 7 years helping to shape education in the diocese. Before that, he spent over 15 years working in the Archdiocese of Newark's education office. He was also a lifelong teacher, working at schools across the country. And while he transitioned into a more administrative role, teaching was a gift that never left him.
Ralph would sometimes walk into a 7th grade, a 6th grade classroom. Then he would do math drills with them. It was just always amazing. You knew that was his element. That's where he felt most comfortable. Superintendent
of schools Thomas Chadzuko says education was Brother Ralph's passion, often searching all over the world for ways to make Catholic schools the best.
He was someone who was always researching, always looking for best practices, always looking for solutions. And a lot of the things that we've adopted in our academy governance model really became because of him.
He was also the liaison for the Brooklyn Diocese to Catholic high schools, and he helped to shape the Catholic identity of diocesan parish schools and academies. Hallelujah. Bishop Raymond Geppetto was the main celebrant at Brother Ralph's Mass of Christian Burial on Tuesday at Immaculate Heart of Mary Church in Windsor Terrace.
He really was a great educator, and we were blessed to have him here working with us.
His impact on diocesan education will live on. In Windsor Terrace, Emily Drewby, Currents News.
A little later tonight, the Democratic National Convention will make it official, nominating Joe Biden and Kamala Harris to lead the ticket in November with a virtual roll call of delegates. Nadia Romero has the story on what else is on tap for day 2.
I want change. I mean, I want a new president. So this is personally important to me, too.
No stranger to campaigning. With her husband of 42 years, Dr. Jill Biden expected to be a standout in night 2 of the Democratic National Convention. Tonight's theme, Leadership Matters. Fellow speakers include rising Democratic star Representative Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez and party staples, former President Bill Clinton and Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer.
One of the things I'm going to touch on is immigration. I feel it passionately. I feel what we've done to immigrants under this administration is horrible in an inhumane way for them, but also for the economy of the country and all the businesses.
Madam Secretary. Also happening tonight, the delegate roll call.
Here are my delegate credentials.
Delegates from all 57 states and territories will get their chance to officially vote to have Joe Biden and Kamala Harris represent the Democratic Party on the ballot. Once again, this time it will be virtual to avoid the massive crowds usually packed into a convention hall for that moment.
We can't do it like we did in 2016. That's just not realistic.
Senator Schumer hopes it's not just the delegates voting for Biden come November.
We cannot be complacent in any way, and we have to remove Donald Trump from office and put Joe Biden in and get America moving.
In Washington, I'm Nadia Romero reporting.
Pro-life Democrats staging a rally in Milwaukee to make sure their voices were heard on the first night of the convention, declaring they refuse to be ignored. The Democrats for Life of America lobbied for a voice within the party. The group's executive director urging the national convention to adopt a whole life approach that supports people of all ages and races. Michelle Obama delivered the keynote address to top off the first night of the convention. She delivered a sharply pointed critique of President Trump.
Donald Trump is the wrong president for our country. He has had more than enough time to prove that he can do the job, but he is clearly in over his head. He cannot meet this moment.
The former First Lady's pre-recorded remarks criticized the president's handling of the coronavirus pandemic. Her speech foreshadowing tonight's convention theme, Leadership Matters. This morning, President Trump punched back at Michelle Obama during a White House celebration he hosted to mark the 100th anniversary of the woman's right to vote.
I thought it was a very divisive speech, extremely divisive. I wouldn't even be here if it weren't for Barack Obama. See, we're standing in the White House. I wouldn't be in the White House except for Barack Obama because they did a bad job. Biden and Obama.
Political squabbling aside, today marks when the 19th Amendment to the Constitution was ratified in 1920, guaranteeing women the right to vote. Trump signed a proclamation declaring August National Suffrage Month. He also announced he's taking a big step to clear the name of a legendary leader of the women's movement.
I will be signing a full and complete pardon for Susan B. Anthony. She was never pardoned.
She was arrested after voting illegally in 1872 and fined $100. Put on trial the following year, Susan B. Anthony was found guilty by an all-male jury. A leading pro-life advocacy group, the Susan B. Anthony List, is named in her honor. The organization's president, Susan Dannenfelser, was at the White House for the pardon announcement. The Republican National Convention starts next week, and tonight we're learning about some of the people who will be speaking to the party. Among them, Covington Catholic High School student Nick Sandman. He captured headlines after being falsely accused of confronting and harassing a Native American activist on the Washington Mall. The student was in the Capitol for the 2019 March for Life. A GOP official is saying Sandman is being invited to speak to demonstrate the dangers of so-called cancel culture. Also to appear at the RNC, New York's Cardinal Timothy Dolan. His Eminence will deliver the convention's opening prayer next Monday. The Cardinal is saying he accepted the invitation because it's his sacred obligation to pray whenever requested to do so, and he would have done the same for the Democrats if they had asked. Prayers flooded the riot-torn streets of Madison, Wisconsin, as 2,000 people took part in a Eucharistic procession for peace and unity in the wake of racial unrest after the killing of George Floyd. Archbishop Jerome Listecki also among the Catholics in the procession. There's a lot more news headed your way. Students heading back to college just to be quarantined, how COVID is affecting campus life. Plus, even those who've left college are dealing with coronavirus chaos as they look for a job. An expert has some advice coming up. And looking back at taking off with the Pope, an airline worker who flew with John Paul II. Stay with us.
Now you can help us put your faith in the news. The next time you capture a newsworthy event, send us your pictures or video. It's easy. Go to netny.tv/send us, and you may see your submission on Currents News.
College classes are beginning across the country, but many will be online for at least part of the fall semester. The ongoing coronavirus pandemic is forcing some colleges to shut their doors, sometimes just days after opening. The University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill is hitting the brakes on in-person classes for undergraduates, moving online starting Wednesday.
I only moved in last Friday.
This decision comes after a rash of COVID-19 cases are confirmed on campus.
I think the right move from the university initially was to not open at all, because back in July, the chancellor sent out emails saying their numbers weren't where they wanted them to be.
More than 1,600 miles away, over 150 students at Colorado College are in quarantine due to possible exposure.
The only thing that I think we don't know is at what point these schools start to shut down again. The virus is still spreading. I mean, this is not the time to open up. I mean, and I don't know if I sound like a crazy person saying that or not, but that is the truth.
The number of known COVID-19 cases in the U.S. doubles roughly every 2 months, according to Johns Hopkins University, and health experts say the country needs to be proactive.
Clearly, we need new testing. We need to be able to scale up testing so that everyone who needs testing, who wants testing, can get it. Schools and colleges can use testing as part of their strategy.
If 95% of the country just simply wore masks at this point, it would start to bend this curve downward and save tens of thousands of lives.
As for those who have already graduated from college, the job market isn't looking so great thanks to COVID. According to Forbes, as of June, there were 73% fewer entry-level jobs. And according to Pew Research Center, young adults have the highest rate of unemployment during the pandemic. In May, it was 25.3% among those 16 to 24 years old, 12 percentage points higher than any other age group. Joining us now to talk about the job market for college grads is Chris Hughes, Associate Director of Career Development at St. Francis College. And Chris, so what advice do you have for those who have just graduated college or are entering their final year?
I'd say one thing would be to be flexible. Use your transferable skills to maybe even look at career options you may have not considered. It's kind of like a mixed bag right now, the job market. There are some areas that, yes, are definitely hurting, like the hospitality industry, restaurant industry, really tough, entertainment industry. But there are other opportunities, like in particular healthcare, IT, private education, where there are a great amount of opportunities, and even surprisingly in some areas of finance. I would also recommend the students. This is a prime opportunity for them to network. And what I mean by network is kind of do things virtually. I would utilize resources like LinkedIn to help network with people, not only in industries that you might want to work, but also in specific companies. And right now, in a bizarre way, it's kind of like a good time. I gotta be very careful. It's kind of like a silver lining type thing, that people are pretty much home. So some people you might build a network with on using resources like LinkedIn, they're at home and might actually be slightly more available to basically discuss your career path. Start getting your resume together, virtually connect with people, also start getting prepared, almost like how we're on Skype right now, prepare for kind of virtual interviews.
All right, now St. Francis College is widely known for its education program, but because of the pandemic, how teachers teach has changed dramatically. So student teaching isn't the same now. It's virtual. What do you say to your education majors?
Well, I still say, again, continue to apply for these opportunities because to my knowledge, a lot of the different, and I think a lot of our teaching education students have been able to get teaching positions. So to my knowledge, when I'm hearing throughout a lot of the schools, private and public schools, my daughter is in private school right now, there are teaching opportunities still available. And again, with the virtual opportunities, they're still there. And also, even for those individuals who might not be able to get a teaching position right now, just opportunities might even be in the tutoring field. Again, private education, meaning tutoring, is actually one of the booming fields because a lot of parents across the country are even having, there are a lot of opportunities where they may not be putting their kids back in school. So there are instances, particularly in the New York area, you're hearing of more well-heeled parents who are actually hiring in-person tutors to work with their children. So again, great deal of flexibility. Thinking about different opportunities is going to be very important during this pandemic.
That's a good point. I've heard about that. And since the pandemic has caused many colleges to go all virtual, some students have decided to go to community colleges instead of paying the high cost of tuition at private institutions. Do you think COVID has caused young people to rethink the value of a college education?
I think unfortunately so, but I will say to all of your viewers out there that, use the analogy. And I know it's tough times right now, but you're still getting that solid education from really solid professors, that when you drive a car off a lot, the value depreciates the second you drive off the lot. But when you go to college, the value of that education increases year by year. I think still taking advantage of opportunities and education you get is a very valuable thing, but you do hear some things regarding students maybe taking a gap year. But even those students who take a gap year, do something, okay? Maybe do something that's kind of an entrepreneurial spirit, take advantage of internships. That's another thing I also want to mention right now. For those of you who are out there who are having difficulties with the job market, there are still plentiful internships. Anything that's going to really help boost your resume at a time. So pretty much don't be complacent. Again, a lot of people, even communication students, might even do something that's kind of an entrepreneurial spirit, doing something in social media, things like that.
All right, good advice. Chris Hughes, Associate Director of Career Development at St. Francis College. Thanks for being with us.
Okay, thank you.
Still to come on Currents News, a lot of us canceled our planned vacations this year because of COVID, and Italy is feeling the pandemic pain. Also ahead, what's it like to travel with the Pope? One man describes his experiences with Pope John Paul II when we come back. Do you have a story idea or want to share a tip? Email us at newstips@desalesmedia.org or call our 24-hour number, 718-517-3122. We'll be right back. Life is returning to normal in Italy, but the COVID pandemic is still taking a toll on the country. International pilgrims and other tourists are staying away since tourism is deemed non-essential and banned. According to Italy's National Tourism Agency, there has been a 90% drop in bookings from non-Italians recently. The organization is projecting 35 million fewer visitors this year than in 2019. St. John Paul II set records for traveling during his pontificate, and a retired airline worker is now remembering the times he took to the skies with the holy man. Melissa Butts has the story.
Maurizio Dickman worked for Alitalia, the airline responsible for John Paul II's papal flights. He participated in more than 60 trips with the pontiff from the late 1980s until 2004, when the pontiff took off for the last time for Lourdes. When the Pope went on a trip, he took off at around 8:30 a.m. from Fiumicino Airport. For us, that meant being there at 3 a.m. because there were many things to do. So we had to get up at midnight. When we traveled to other continents, there were 12 or 13-hour flights. When we got there, we had to keep working. We went to bed after 20 hours of work. However, we weren't tired because of the Pope's charisma, his ability to get you emotionally involved, his spiritual strength. You felt it inside. Maurizio remembers a key moment that occurred on each trip, the time of takeoff. When the plane takes off, all the lights are turned off for more power, but one remained on, the Pope's. We were all there staring at him, because in the dark you could see that whiteness, and you could feel this mystical silence. At that moment, you said to yourself, mission accomplished. The shepherd is returning home. We work for him, and he works for us, the church. Maurizio has retired, but he will never forget his trips alongside John Paul II. He also remembers a very personal encounter when the then pontiff celebrated Maurizio and his wife's 25th wedding anniversary in his private chapel in the Vatican. Melissa Butts, Currents News.
Later this week, Melissa will bring a little slice of the Eternal City to you virtually, since most Americans can't travel to Europe right now. Her tour of Rome's most popular attractions is back on Thursday. And that is Currents News. I'm Christine Persichetti. We leave you now with a tribute to the brave women who fought to make sure their voices and the voices of future generations of women are heard in every election. We remember the 100th anniversary of the 19th Amendment. Thank you for joining us, because we are putting your faith in the news. Hope to see you again next time.